It's official. Pete Alonso is gone, and New York Mets fans are livid. Let's get into it. So, first off, let me apologize. I do not have my camera or my microphone with me right now. I'm away from home. But I have to react to this. I have to react to Pete Alonso signing with the New York Mets. I'm sorry. Pete Alonso signs with the Baltimore Orioles on a 5-year, $155 million contract and has officially left the New York Mets, leaving many Mets fans furious at David Stearns. And this is something that we kind of anticipated would happen eventually, especially with the negotiations that happened last year. This was not shocking, but I don't know. I guess I just had this funny feeling that because he means so much to the franchise and the fan base, that they would come to some sort of agreement. Clearly the New York Mets did not want to go past 3 years for a contract for Pete Alonso. They did not give him an offer after the 5-year 155, and Pete Alonso's gone. And New York Mets fans are going to have to live with it. They're going to have to live with the fact that they have now lost three beloved players. And here comes the discussion of, well, this team had one of the biggest collapses that we've ever seen, slow collapses, changes needed to be made. While I agree with that, Brandon Nimmo is a trade that I think most Met fans understood needed to be done, whether it's saving, a bad contract, coming in and maybe saving more money, maybe making you more flexible to make other moves. That was a reasonable deal. Uh, that I don't think many Mets fans were too upset because I think they were waiting for another shoe to drop. The Diaz thing caught everybody by surprise. Edwin Diaz signs with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Why does he sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers? Well, apparently he didn't like the communication with David Stearns and Devin Williams. Apparently, that is the reported rumor. I don't know how true that is, considering that he did not go back to the Mets with an offer and wanted to leave. People are kind of saying that as like, oh, well, he wanted to leave, as if the Mets shouldn't take any accountability for that or take any blame for that. I disagree completely. I mean, he's the best closer in baseball and he wants to leave your franchise. At some point, you're going to have to take accountability for that. Why does he want to leave? Shouldn't you overpay him? I mean, shouldn't you pay him more? Or shouldn't you do anything possible to make sure he comes back? Because he's a big piece that you're going to need if you want to compete for World Series championships. I would assume, considering how well Diaz has pitched in the last few years, and the Dodgers are your competition. You basically, the one flaw they had last season was that bullpen, and Tanner Scott didn't work out. So now you're bringing in Edwin Diaz. Something tells me he's going to work out just fine. Okay, you lose Edwin Diaz because he doesn't want to leave, because he wants to leave. You trade Brandon Nimmo away, no salary, for salary reasons. Pete Alonso comes in. Now, he has a great season last year. He is a beloved player for the fan base. I feel like for PR reasons, yeah, you don't love the final 2 years of that contract, but really no free agent contract looks great in the last few years. I mean, the New York Yankees, when they signed Max Fried, I'm sure the last few years of that contract they didn't love doing. Garrett Cole, same deal. Aaron Judge, even. I mean, Juan Soto, who's a New York Met. You got to assume the last few years of that contract are not going to look great. So, considering Pete Alonso it would only be a 5-year contract, and considering you think you're at least going to get 3 more good years out of Pete, and that he's a homegrown talent, and he's proven that he could hit in October in clutch moments, I just don't see it. I didn't see the reason for letting him walk. It's clearly Steve Cohen and Steve Cohen's trust in David Stearns to make the right decision. Stearns just didn't like Pete Alonso as a baseball player, or should I say, didn't believe that he was a key piece in winning a championship. He didn't think it. And the fan base can scream and cry all they want. David Stearns is running his show. And we saw in year one, we saw the good parts of that where he didn't spend big money on pitching and it worked out that first year. The second year, early on, looked like it was doing okay. They made the big offer for Soto, but clearly didn't, they clearly fell off a cliff. This is Stearns basically saying there is an issue with this locker room and there is an issue with this core and we are breaking this up. Now, Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto are still on this team. I don't think you're going to move those guys. I don't think with obviously not Soto, but the contract of Lindor, I don't think you're going to be able to move. And especially with how well Lindor played in the postseason a couple years ago, was an MVP candidate in the National League. Why would you want to move off of that? Francisco Lindor is a smooth glove. You know, he gets his hot and cold stretches, but he's proved to be an incredibly clutch hitter and has embraced being the franchise player for the New York Mets. And I really just thought Pete Alonso would go along with that. I thought he would be a similar and Edwin Diaz. I mean, Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz were not the reason why the New York Mets were falling off a cliff this year. They were not the reasons for that. In fact, they were probably the reasons they won 83 games. If you look at the New York Mets and how they collapsed, it was the rest of the bullpen without Edwin Diaz, which now they don't have anymore. So now you got to look at the whole bullpen and be like the crappy bullpen that was last year. Obviously, bullpens are hit or miss. The Mets bullpen could be excellent next year. Here's my thing. Devin Williams was a disaster with the New York Yankees last year until the end of the season when he became a setup guy. So if you're saying Devin Williams is going to be the setup guy, which even $51 million for Devin Williams after a bad season is still crazy to me. He right now is your closer. And he didn't close well with the Yankees. How often do they come in and they pitch better for the New York Mets? I mean, people are not going to feel good about that. Devin Williams could pitch fine in the regular season and close fine in the regular season. But we have seen him. The New York Mets fan has seen Devin Williams in action in a big postseason game. Pete Alonso hit the 3-run homer off of him in the wild card. They've seen it. It doesn't look great. It doesn't get them excited. So David Stearns clearly doesn't care about that. It's been said he acts like he's the smartest man in the room. Same with Colin. And that's going to be put to the test. 100% going to be put to the test because the fan base is livid. They've gotten rid of 3 fan favorites. And I've seen people going at New York Met fans being like, it's so amazing to me how the fans could be so attached to players who haven't won anything. First of all, let's talk about this. Let's get this out of the way. How many New York Met teams have made it to a CS? How many New York Met teams have done that? I understand a CS is not winning a World Series. But Pete Alonso was a big reason for that. Edwin Diaz was a big reason for that, right? Brandon Nimmo, same deal. Now, Brandon Nimmo, I'm going to leave out of it. It's really just a trade that needed to happen for salary reasons, and I understood the deal, even though didn't love the return. I assumed that was more of like a step one trade where it's like, hey, we're making this trade so we can do something else. We're going to have to see what that is. As with this entire Mets offseason, letting Diaz and Alonso walk, we're going to have to see. However, Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz were a part of good Met teams. So when you say they haven't won anything, there hasn't been any Met player that has won a World Series since 1986. Yeah, I get it. They've technically won nothing. But David Wright technically won nothing. And they didn't let David Wright walk. So David Wright was on a 2006 CS team. These are things, and you know what? He did not really perform that well in the postseason that year. I obviously didn't watch it. I was really young, but from what I have read and have seen from that playoff run, I don't believe David Wright was the best player in October. So Pete Alonso has proven that he can hit in October and get clutch at bats. Obviously, David Wright had the big home run in the 2015 World Series on basically with no back. So Alonso is now going to Baltimore, which of course is now a big issue for my Yankees. He meant so much to this, excuse me, he meant so much to this organization. I just don't see the reason for not accepting the final 2 years. If the 5 year $155 million contract was the market for Pete, considering how and what he meant to the team and the organization, I just don't see why you don't give him that. I just don't see it. Or if you're looking to move him at all, maybe trade him if you really don't believe in him that much. So I don't understand it. I really don't. And you know what? I don't think you should. I don't think Mets fans should get mad at people who don't understand it. I think I've seen Mets fans that have been like, it's okay, it's fine, we're gonna be fine, and everything's great. David Stearns has a plan. Oh, I believe that David Stearns has a plan. No, I don't believe David Stearns doesn't have a plan. I think his plan included Edwin Diaz coming back. I'll tell you that. That hasn't worked out. So I believe David Stearns and Steve Cohen have a plan. I don't know if it's the right plan for a big market franchise. You have to rebuild quickly. You have to retool quickly. You have to act quickly in this town. We saw it with the New York Giants. The New York Giants, Joe Shane, Brian Dable took a super patient approach. Super patient. Kind of similar to what Stearns, in his own way, has gone with the New York Mets. He wanted to see what the current talent had in store. So he added some penny pinching pitching. It's a bit of a tongue twister. He did some small moves to see if I can maybe get the best out of this core group. And they did. They had a CS run. It was really impressive. Then they added to it, and then they fell off a cliff in the second half of the year. So clearly he thinks this is fool's gold. Similar to the Joe Shane, Brian Dable thing. Here is where things really went south for the New York Giants. They didn't take action. They let people walk. They let Saquon Barkley walk after that year. A fan favorite. A really good talent. They let him walk. Right? Going into the next season, they didn't act with enough urgency. This is what Stearns cannot do, especially in baseball, especially when you have one of the richest owners in American sports. You cannot do that. You want to see, you believe in the young guys, that's fine. But you better be right. You better be right. You have a great farm system. You believe all this stuff. That's great. You better be right. The New York Mets have to make the playoffs this season. And that was the case whether you were bringing back Diaz and Pete. I get it. But now you definitely need to make the playoffs this year. And you need to do something in the playoffs. You can't just make the wild card round and lose. You have to take action. So we're going to see David Stearns' plan. I'm intrigued to see what it is. I mean, is it Kyle Tucker? Is it Cody Bellinger? Is it none of those guys? Is it not spending money? Is it making trades? What is it? How is he going to upgrade that starting pitching, which is the biggest reason why they collapsed last year? What's that lineup going to look like with no Pete Alonso? Who's going to protect Juan Soto? Who's going to close games? Is it going to be Devin Williams? How's it going to look at first? Is Devin Williams going to be awesome in the regular season? We'll see. Is he more comfortable in New York? Maybe. We'll see. Is he more comfortable with Stearns, a Milwaukee guy? We'll see. These are major questions I have for the New York Mets. And guess what? The fan base is not going to have a lick of patience. The only way you are going to get Met fans to show up to the ballpark next year, the only way is if you start winning games. It wouldn't shock me if that first week Citi Field is empty. Wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me. Even if they bring in a big time player, even if they bring in Cody Bellinger, wouldn't shock me. We saw this with the Dallas Mavericks and the Lakers. Not exactly, but similar situation. And what I said was, you got to be careful in regards to moving superstar talent in trades. Because if you're trading a superstar who's homegrown, beloved, took you to the finals, whatever, and I know obviously Pete Alonso didn't do that, but he was a beloved talent that had some playoff success, at least as much as playoff success as the Mets have seen in there since '86, if we're being honest. This team does not make the playoffs more than 2 years in a row. And Alonso didn't do that, but he was a part of a 101 win season, and he was a part of a CS run with hitting one of the greatest hits in franchise history. And he had a great season last year. Team narrowly missed. So, you know, what I say back with that Mavericks Lakers deal, obviously, Luka being traded, I don't think is a great idea in the first place. And one of the reasons I said that was be careful because a fan base being so attached to a star, it's rare that if you just swap stars, that fan base is going to feel excited about the new star. They have no attachment to them. Now, that's what you got to be careful about. And I can't remember the last time that really worked out. Maybe Toronto with DeMar DeRozan, but I think even some Raptors fans were sick of DeMar DeRozan, and they still had Lowry there. Who was a fan favorite. I think this is a plan David Stearns has. And listen, we've seen baseball. If anything, baseball is the one sport where a star could leave and the situation just be drastically better for some reason. We've seen it. We've seen, Bryce Harper leave the Nationals. They go on and win a World Series. We have seen this, okay? It's just the history of the New York Mets and this fan base has seen so much that they cannot believe in it. They can't. And how could they? Because they've seen stars that have been homegrown for them leave and it not work out pretty much every time. Every time. Tom Seaver, Doc and Darryl, Kevin Mitchell, Lenny Dykstra, Jacob deGrom, Zach Wheeler, Jose Reyes. Listen, they let go of Jose Reyes. They went to the World Series a few years later. So maybe Reyes wasn't the right thing. But I was trying to think of also, just go back to the Devin Williams thing. I was trying to think of a Yankee, a former Yankee that ended up having success with the Mets after they were with the Yankees first. And really, I think the only person I could think of was Curtis Granderson, which he's kind of the rare case of that. So is Devin Williams going to be like that? Listen, Devin Williams' body language was terrible for the Yankees last year. Terrible. And I'm sorry, no Met fan is going to enjoy Devin Williams' body language if he's not pitching well. They're just not going to enjoy it. Maybe he's more comfortable there. Clay Holmes is another one. I should say that. Clay Holmes coming from the Mets to the Yankees. He pitched well last year. He pitched really well at the end of the year in that final series versus the Marlins. This is where if you know a Met fan in your life, you have to give him a hug and you have to consult, you have to comfort them during this time. It's hard to lose three beloved players on your team like this. It's really hard. And you know what? What's crazy about it is they lost him for nothing. See, my Brooklyn Nets, for example, when we lost Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, those were trades. We got stuff back for those guys. You losing Pete Alonso for nothing. Losing Edwin Diaz for nothing. Nimmo, you didn't lose for nothing, but wasn't a lot to be desired in that trade either. We'll see what Marcus Semien does this year. David Stearns has a plan. I respect, in a way, how sure he is of his plan. All I'm going to say is he better hope it works. This fan base is going to be ruthless. This is a passionate fan base. If you are winning 90-something games next year and you're competing in the National League and the fans really have a lot of hope in the team, fans will come back. But to me, it's going to be a similar situation to what we saw 2 years ago when Mets fans weren't showing up to the ballpark early in the year, and then they went on this crazy run and they came back. That's what it's going to have to be for this fan base to get on board again. They're going to have to get them back on board because they have lost patience. They have lost respect from this fan base for now. And you do that when you let franchise players that they love, go. But they know that. They're smart people. David Stearns, I know a lot of people are getting on him. This is a man with credibility in baseball. He's not just some idiot. He may look like one in the long run by letting these people go, but he is a guy who a lot of people in the baseball world knows, like, love and respect as a baseball mind in the front office. What are they going to do? It all comes down to that. What are they going to do? And we're going to cover it. We're going to talk about it. It's going to be very fascinating to see. Listen, it's heartbreaking if you're a Mets fan. Heartbreaking. I mean, I got my girlfriend a Pete Alonso jersey 2.5 years ago because I thought this was after they won 101 games. I thought there was no doubt Alonso was going to stay a Met his whole life. Pete Alonso's her favorite player. And you know what? It sucks. There's Mets fans who are hurt. They are hurt right now. And it's up to David Stearns and Steve Cohen to change this, to make this team a consistent winner. They're going to have to do it with some mercenaries instead of homegrown talent. I mean, obviously the farm system, I'm sure is going to be a big part of it. They're hoping that new young players come in. Maybe. But they're going to have to win right away. They have to make the playoffs next year. They're looking to compete for a championship. I mean, that's the goal this offseason. The goal is not to rebuild. The goal is to win now. And they believe Diaz is a different story. I think that was just poor communication, but they believe losing Diaz, Pete Alonso, that's fine. We're going to win now without those guys. Very fascinating. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the JB podcast. I'll be back soon. I'll see you guys later. Thank you.